Hello and good afternoon, CSI135 Section 400 students for the fall 2013 semester at Anne Arundel Community College. So today's video is going to demonstrate how to create a virtual machine by downloading the Fedora software as well as the Ubuntu software. The Fedora install I'm going to demonstrate with VMware Workstation version 9 on a Windows machine, and that is this window here in the middle. And then I'm also going to demonstrate how to create a new virtual machine, and I'll use Ubuntu for this one with VMware Fusion. And so as you can see, VMware Fusion is running natively on my Mac. I'm doing a remote desktop session here to a Windows Enterprise 7 laptop with VMware Workstation 9. The version of VMware Fusion that I am running is the professional version 5.0.3, and again on the Windows laptop I'm running version 9. Alright, so let's get started because we do have to do a couple downloads here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get the latest and greatest Fedora 19. It's got all kinds of great features, and so I'm going to go ahead and it says 951 meg ISO for 64-bit. I'm going to go ahead, we're going to do the 32-bit version. So if I click on downloads, it brings me here to the landing page for Fedora 19 Desktop Edition, and you can download now, but again, this is the ISO image for 64-bit. So we're going to do 32-bit because everyone might not have 64-bit. So as you can see, there's a lot of different options you can choose from. I'm going to go ahead and we'll do the KDE version. Since I demonstrated in class how to do the GNOME version, let's try the KDE version this time. So I'm going to go ahead and click download, and it's going to bring me this page, and we're going to get an error message, so that's okay. So let's come back, go back a couple here. Whoop! Alright, there it is. So we got an error message, but then it came up and it gave us the ISO image. So I'll click save. We'll do save as. I'll put it in a common folder, just in the documents, virtual machine. So we'll put it right there, and I'll say save. Okay, so it looks like this is going to take about 6 minutes to download. So let's come over here, and again, this is Firefox, but this is resident on the host operating system. So this is where we're going to download the Ubuntu desktop. And as you can see, we could do 64-bit, but for the latest features, we're going to do 13.10, and I'm going to go ahead, we'll do 32-bit. Okay, so I'll click here. Now, Ubuntu is going to ask you to donate, and you can donate if you'd like, or you can simply zero out these dollar amounts, which I'll go ahead and do right now. And again, this is one way that Ubuntu funds their activities. And so then I'll say download. Alright, and as you can see, this is an ISO image, and it's asking us, do we want to mount it with disk mounter? We don't. We just simply want to download it, 895 meg. So I'll click OK. And now we're going to find out just how good that FiOS connection is. So I've got a 75 down, 35 up FiOS connection, and as you can see here, it looks like this may take some time, about 29 minutes. Oh, we're down to 27 minutes, and over here we've got about 4 minutes and 23 seconds. So I'm going to pause right now, and then we'll step back in once these downloads have completed. Okay, as you can see, the Fedora Live KDE version, Fedora 19, has completed. The ISO has been downloaded. So we'll go ahead and we'll move forward with the installation here, and if you look over here in the top right, you can see we've still got about 21 minutes to go. So while that's downloading, we'll get the Fedora installed. So I'm not going to open it or open the folder, I'm just going to simply close it. And again, one of the requirements is that you have VMware Workstation 9 as part of this exercise. So I'm going to click on Create New Virtual Machine, and we're going to do typical. And again, this is just a basic install. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say we're not going to install with a disk. I'm going to use an ISO image, right? and I'm going to browse to find that image. And you'll remember that we just downloaded it. And let me click on downloads here. Whoops. Actually, we'll come over here to virtual machines. There we go. All right. So here's the ISO image that we're going to use. I'm going to go ahead and click Open. It says could not detect which operating system is in this disk image, and that's okay because we'll select it here in a second. We're going to choose Linux, and as we talked about in class, you can see that there are a whole host of guest operating systems we can create. And if you look under Linux, you can see there's quite a few that are here. So we're just going to choose Fedora. If we were doing 64-bit, we could choose Fedora 64-bit, but I'll just say Fedora. I'll click Next. And the virtual machine name will be Travis Fedora 19 KDE. Now, this is critical. The location. Where do I want to create this virtual machine? And I'm okay with doing it here in virtual machines because that's the folder where I keep the majority of the virtual machines I have for my laptop. So I'll click Next. Now, the disk is stored in one or more files on the host computer system. So the maximum size, we could do 20 gig. Let's go ahead and change this, and we'll change it to 30. Just to demonstrate that you can change the size of the virtual machine. Now, this is very important. You can store the disk as a single file, or you can split it into multiple files which all range in size from, as the VM is installed, about 320 kilobytes all the way up to 1.9 gigabytes. And so you'll notice we should have approximately 15 files that get created, and we'll go in and I'll show you these VMDK files. So let's go ahead and click Next. Now it shows you sort of a summary of what we've just done, and let's click on Customize Hardware. As you can see, we're allocating a gig of memory, and that's the recommendation. The maximum amount of memory would be 13.4 gigabytes. And one processor, so we're good. I could also change the number of processors if I wanted to give it 2 processors. Number of cores per processor, we'll say 2. And so I'll do that because I've got a pretty powerful laptop system. It's got 16 gigabytes of memory. And so let me go ahead and close this. And I'm going to click Finish. All right. Now, when the virtual machine settings have been completed, right, we can see we get a list of the devices over here. You'll notice that the state is powered off. So I'm going to go ahead and power this virtual machine on right now. And remember that this is actually taking place on a Windows Enterprise 7 laptop and not on the native Mac. So I'm remote desktoped in here. Okay, so the Fedora Live installation is going to begin. And we're going to go ahead and let the icon load up. Let me drop this down to a smaller window. And as you can see, this is considerably faster than the installation that we did in class. Again, this laptop is very powerful. It has a 512 gigabyte SSD hard drive, as well as 16 gigs of RAM. So it should go pretty quickly. Okay. And so as it comes up here, it says Install to Hard Drive. Oops, the mouse moved on me there. So it says Install to Hard Drive. And you can see we have another tab over to the right-hand side that has other options as well. Okay, so I double-clicked on Install to Hard Drive, and it says Welcome to Fedora 19. So we're going to go ahead and choose English as our language. Click Continue. And so now it's going to ask me about the time, and this is also very similar to what we saw last night. So date and time. If I click on that, if I leave network time on, I'm unable to change the time here. And you can see that the time is not correct. The date is correct, but the time is off. So I'm going to go ahead and turn network time off for this example. And when I turn network time off, give it a second here, should allow me to make the changes to the time on the bottom. And as we saw in class last night, as soon as you turn network time off, this became a field that we could edit, and it doesn't appear. Oh, sorry. Turn network time off. So we are in America, and we are in the New York region. And it doesn't look like it's given us the opportunity once we turn network time off. Let's click Done. And let me go back in and see if it gives us an option. Try to move ourselves over here back to New York. So network time is off, but interestingly, we're not able to adjust the time here as we were last night during the demonstration. So we'll go ahead and leave the time off for now. So the network configuration we're going to leave the same. The installation destination, it says automatic partitioning has been selected. And so this is, if you remember, we said that we wanted it to be 30 gigabytes in size. This is where I had changed the size from 20 gigabytes to 30 gigabytes. And this is our virtual disk, which is just SDA. You can get a full disk summary in bootloader. So I'm just going to go ahead and click. Oh, sorry. I'm going to go ahead and click this disk. We're going to select that disk. I'm going to click Done. So automatically configure the disk, or would you like to review or modify the disk partition? So this is something we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and attempt this next week. Right now, we're just going to go ahead and automatically configure it. So I'll click Continue. All right. And you'll notice that the exclamation mark went away. And so now I simply click Begin Installation. Okay, so root password is not set. I'm going to go ahead and I'll set a simple root password. Just make it my name. Now remember, it's not recommended that you create a simple password, and you can see here it's very weak. It says it's shorter than 8 characters, and you have to press Done twice. So I'll say Done and then Done. So while this install is completing, I'm also going to create my first initial user. So Travis Bonfili, and the username automatically fills in, but I'm going to go ahead and change it. I'll just change it to TP Bonfi. I could also make this user an administrator, but again, we just want to create a simple user, not one with administrative privileges, and so then I'll put a password in. We'll just make it Travis. And as you can see, it clearly states that this is a weak password, and I'm going to have to hit Done twice, and that's okay for the purposes of this example. All right, so at this point, we're about 43% of the way through. Software is installing again very quickly. And we're going to go ahead and allow this to finish. I'm going to pause right now, and once this is complete, I'll start the video back up. All right, as you can see, the software is 99%, 100% done. Now it's going to perform a series of post-installation setup tasks, and these should finish rather quickly. So just to sort of level set and recap what we've done so far, we've gone out to the fedoraproject.org homepage. We downloaded the 32-bit version of Fedora 19, the ISO image. You could certainly attempt the 64-bit, but again, we're just demonstrating the 32-bit here, as most of the students probably have 32-bit machines today, although that's changing rapidly. We went ahead and used VMware Workstation 9. Remember to take advantage of the free 2-year license that the school provides to you, and you can download VMware Workstation 9. In fact, I believe VMware Workstation 10 is now available for download as well with that free 2-year student license. We then opened the ISO image. We walked through the configuration steps. We selected Fedora, not the 64-bit, but just regular Fedora. We went ahead and created a virtual disk. Okay, and so it looks like we're finished here. So it says Fedora is now successfully installed on your system and ready to use. When you're ready, reboot. So you can see here I have a tab to quit, and I want to make sure that this is the proper tab. All right, so here we are back to the original desktop for the install, and it looks like it's going to go ahead and shut down and reboot at this time. Whoops, go ahead and let me give it I'll reset it here. All right. So I'm going to reset my VM. Click OK. As you can see, it's going to come up and prompt you. Do you want to boot to the 395 version of the kernel? And that's happening automatically. All right, the logo's filling in. Again, happens very quickly. Okay, so this is the KDE version of the desktop. As you can see, it's going to be asking for a username and password. So let's enter in the username that we created, which was tpbonfie, and the password, which was simply Travis. And I'll hit enter. And this is now going to load my desktop. So as you can see here, I've got my Fedora desktop. Let me go ahead and kill that message there. Very similar to Windows, right? You've got your launch bar, you've got a web browser, a mail client. We can take a look at system settings, right? You've got your file manager. So let me open Dolphin up here. And as you can see, very similar to the Windows Explorer browser. So we've got documents, templates, music videos, right? So if I come down, excuse me, one of the popular applications we want to look for is Terminal. Now, interesting, you can choose the console with a K, right, because it's the KDE desktop, or we can go with Xterm. So I can actually drag these out, and if I wanted to try to pin these somewhere or drop them out on the desktop, I could do that as well. So I've put console and Xterm out on the desktop, so I'll double click. And I'll double click on console, and so here's what the console window looks like. I apologize, I'm remote desktoped in here, and so the windows are kind of small. So a lot of the utilities that we use commonly are also available with Fedora. So you can also run various commands, the same commands that we run on the VADER system, who, uptime, last. It'll show you a log. Now, what's interesting, and we'll get into this more next week, is that I can now switch over and change to the super user, right? Change to the root user, and the password we provide is simply the one that we created when we first set up the VM. So now I can go into the Etsy directory and I can cat out files that I couldn't cat out before. And so let me hit enter a few times. So now you can see the encrypted version of my password. And this is the Etsy shadow file. Let me clear the screen. So there's a number of things that you can do now that we weren't previously able to do as just a common system user. So these are the KDE windows. Let me iconify those. And here are your Xterm windows. So I prefer the KDE windows to the Xterm windows. And you can see here's the Xterm window, right? Okay, so this is how you would create on a Windows system using VMware Workstation 9, how you would create a virtual machine. And the process would be the same if I were to choose either Mint or CentOS or Ubuntu with VMware Workstation. It would be, the process would be almost identical. Obviously, we would choose those operating systems as required. All right, so it looks like we've got about 10 minutes left here. And let's see what we're looking at. We got about 569 megs of the 895 megs for Ubuntu 13.10. And I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here, and I'll pick back up once this download has been completed. I'm going to go ahead and close the window out here for the virtual machine that we created, and I'll go ahead and just power that guy off. All right, stand by and we'll pick up where we left off in just a second. Okay, the Ubuntu download has completed. As we can see here, it took a little longer than anticipated, but the download is now complete, and so I've got that ISO image. And so let's go ahead, and again, now we're natively on the host. We're no longer remote desktoped into a Windows system. I'm actually on my Mac, and I'm using VMware Fusion. So I'm going to say continue without disk, and we're going to use an existing virtual, oops, sorry about that. We're going to go ahead and use a disk image. It's going to allow me to choose a disk image. And so you can see, as soon as I come into my downloads area, I've got Ubuntu, so let's choose that. All right, that's been loaded, so I'm going to say continue. And again, we're prompted a number of choices that you can choose from here, a number of selections, right? So we'll say Linux, Ubuntu, and it identified it automatically. I'll click continue. So display name, I'll put Travis P. Bonfili. Account name, just TP Bonfi. Let's put the password in. We'll just make it Travis, something simple for right now. So make your folder accessible to the virtual machine, my home folder. I definitely want that. And we're going to do the easy install. All right, so I'll click continue. Now again, we get a quick summary here. We're going to use a gig of RAM. The disk size is 20 gigabytes. So if I wanted to customize that, I could click on customize and then go for a customization. But we're going to go ahead and leave it with just the defaults, right? So I'll click finish. And it's going to come up and say save as Ubuntu. It's in the virtual machine, so I'll say Travis Ubuntu example 13.10. And I'll click save. And I don't have an SSD hard drive here. I have a SATA hard drive, so this may take just a tad bit longer. All right. So the virtual machine is starting up. You can see it's ISO is Linux. And here we go. And in all honesty, I feel that at least my personal experience has been that the Ubuntu interface is much friendlier. I like the presentation of the Ubuntu interface better than the Fedora, whether it's GNOME or KDE. And I think Ubuntu has quite a large feature set. They both do. It really comes down to personal preference. But I truly enjoy using Ubuntu more than I do the Fedora installations that are out there. All right. So now it's going to go through. It's going to verify the installation and configuration information. You can see there it's creating the ext4 file systems and partitioning things out. Now it's going to copy files over. And we'll go ahead and let this run for a second here. And what I'll do now is I'll pause. I'm going to come back once the file copy installation is over with. So let's pause and I'll pick back up once this is complete. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to pick back up here. The installation completed, and now it's going through the reboot process. And let me go ahead and see if I can make this a little bit larger. So there we go. And now my Ubuntu 13.10 virtual machine is complete, and here it is. So I can do a guest session, remote login. So let's just go ahead and we'll log in with the password of Travis. And we'll give it a couple seconds here to load up. And then my desktop will display right here, and there it is. So as you can see, you've got quite a few widgets: system setting, excuse me, Amazon, Ubuntu One, Software Center, right? You've got the LibreOffice applications. We've got the web browser. So if I were to click on Firefox, it would open my web browser up just like it would in any other operating system, right? Takes us right to Google. So intro to Linux YouTube, and let's see what's out there. Right, you've got a number of videos. Linux for beginners. Tons of tutorials that are out there. Okay, so this completes the tutorial, and so what we've done today is we've actually used a Windows workstation with VMware Workstation 9. We've used a Mac with VMware Fusion 5.0.3, and we've downloaded for free, and again that's the key, right? For free, we've downloaded the Fedora 19 desktop, and we've also downloaded the Ubuntu 13.10 desktop, and we now have access to virtual machines, right? And these machines will continue to, let's pull it to see what the terminal is. Yep, U-term, X-term, so we'll do this guy here. And so we'll go ahead and continue to see that you now have a full Linux operating system. And not only do you have a full Linux operating system, but you could actually simply copy the folder over. And if I pull my, pull the folder up here and go to, excuse me, Documents, and then to Virtual Machines, you can see that I've got a number of virtual machines here. So I could actually copy the Ubuntu sample that I created. You can see it's 5.2 gigabytes, and move that to another Mac. And as long as I have VMware Fusion, I'll be able to run that VM, right? So go ahead and experiment. You can try with some of the different operating systems that are out there. Again, I mentioned a couple. You have Mint KDE you could try. You could try CentOS. There's virtually almost every Linux distribution that's out there is available for download in ISO format, and then you can go ahead and create a virtual machine. All right, that completes this tutorial. Have a great weekend, and I will see everybody next Wednesday.